Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Glad to have you along for another discussion on a relevant topic from a biblical Christian standard. We want to use the Bible. We want to use Christian teaching. We want to think through issues from a godly perspective. We don't want to get caught up in the world. We don't want to flow down the river of secularism as it's winding its way around our culture. We want to stand strong for the truth of God and not cave in and not just be a part of the crowd. Because, there's safety in the crowd. If you blend in with the crowd, if you join the crowd, if you move with the crowd, you're not going to be picked on. You're not going to be ostracized. You're not going to be marginalized. You're going to fit in with the popular crowd, but then you're going to be dishonoring God if you're going into sin. You can't follow the crowd. That's what parents teach their teenagers when they go off to school. Don't do everything the crowd says to do. Think for yourself. Stand on your own principles. Don't just be a part of something just to be a part of something. Don't be a part of something just to fit in. Have enough courage, have a backbone to stand strong and say, no, I'm not going that direction. It's wrong. It's sinful. It's evil. And I have principles, and I'm not going to follow the crowd. Now, the crowd will laugh at you. They'll poke fun at you. They'll try to pressure you. They'll try to shame you. They'll try to use all kinds of psychological and emotional blackmail to try to get you to join them. Because if you can join the crowd, then they feel better about themselves collectively. Oh, good, somebody else joined us. We must be on the right path. So they're trying to satisfy their own inner needs by recruiting you, using you as a pawn, as a tool to satisfy their own emotional or inner needs. But you have to stand strong and say, no, I'm not going along with the crowd. Well, one of the issues today that Christians have to learn how to stand up to, and that is this cultural, they call it cultural Marxism, this sort of social Marxism, this kind of critical race theory thinking where white people are evil and everyone else of different other colors, they're the good people. And the white people are bad and evil and they're oppressive and they are racist and they're the problem in society. And so we need to get them to not be who they are, and we need to criticize them and shame them and make them feel guilty for simply being white. And we need to accuse them of being racist and white supremacist, and then we need to have them bend over backwards and give special favors to people who are not white. And this critical race insanity totally violates all of biblical teaching. You know, the Bible teaches all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. White people are sinners. We all agree. That's what the Bible teaches. But so are black people. They're sinners too. And yellow people are sinners. And all the different shades of humanity are sinners. There is no one group that is evil, sinful, white. People are not special in their sins. White people are sinners just like black people and brown and every other shade of humanity. So there's that critical race theory teaching that white is evil, white is bad, whiteness is something we need to get rid of. This is nonsense. Of course, it's nonsense, yet it's growing in popularity, especially at colleges and universities. Well, my old alma mater, Wheaton College, and I get their newsletter every couple months, the Wheaton Bulletin. It's the Wheaton Record, I think it is. Wheaton College Monthly Alumni Magazine. And from this alumni magazine, I can see that my old alma mater, Wheaton College, I graduated back in the day with a degree in philosophy, Christian philosophy. I loved my time at Wheaton, but that was in a day before this so-called woke critical race theory, this white supremacy claims that critical race theory levels against all white people. This is before Wheaton College, joined the ranks of the critical race theorists, and now they see things through the lens of race, and they see things through the lens of intersectionality. That's another part of the critical race theory where there are these oppressed, so-called oppressed groups, and then there is a hierarchy of oppression. And if you're really high up on the hierarchy of oppression, so-called, then you get special favors. And if you're really low at the lowest end of the oppression scale, you get nothing. In fact, you have to give accommodations to every other group because you're the problem, and that is the white people. The white people are the ones on the bottom of the oppression hierarchy, so-called, and they're the ones that have to confess sins that they didn't even do. And we're seeing that over there at Wheaton College now. I read an article in this magazine from an alumni, Dr. Beverly Liefeld Hancock, graduated in '84, president of the Wheaton College Alumni Association Board of Directors. She is bought into the critical race theory woke ideology that is spreading all over the college campuses and institutions and the government now with the radical left in charge. And their target is white people in general. And they're blaming everything on the white person. So irrational, so foolish. And yet that's what we see from Beverly Liefeld Hancock in her article. She says here, during the pandemic, we became more aware that embracing our differences does not always come easily. So why would that be apparent during the pandemic? Why would during the pandemic we became aware that embracing our differences does not always come easily? What is she referring to there? Embracing our differences does not come easy. Did something happen during the pandemic time that supposedly reminded us of our differences and how we don't know how to deal with our differences? The riots during the summer of 2020 when Black Lives Matter activists burned down blocks of cities because they claimed that there was racial injustice and that there was white supremacy and that white people are going out of their way to try to hurt black people and all this stuff. Oh, that's how we learned that we don't quite know how to work with our differences? No, that's not exactly how we learn anything. In fact, what we learn from the riots is that a small activist group on the left can basically bully a whole society into conformity if it's willing to burn down buildings and do violence against people. Then it can bully the culture in general by calling them racist and white supremacists, and then they'll bend over backwards to meet their demands. It's like a terrorist group. You hold hostage a group of people and say, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to kill these hostages. Well, Black Lives Matter over the summer of 2020 essentially held a whole nation hostage by threatening to burn down the cities unless their demands were met. And what were their demands? That white people admit that they're guilty of racism. All white people. Well, I'm sorry. Not all white people are racist. In fact, most white people in this country, your average white person, is not a racist. In fact, there are only a very small handful minority of people who actually fit the definition of racist and actually believe that the white race is superior, intrinsically. Yeah, only very few people believe that. And those are the wacko jobs that you read about once in a while or you run into once in a while. But vast majority of white people are totally on board with the idea that all people are made in the image of God, that all people have worth, and that we should treat each person with respect. regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their status, regardless of their country of origin, regardless of their skin color. I think most people, most white people, are totally comfortable with the idea of equality. So what is the problem? Well, the Black Lives Matter movement and the critical race theory and what's going on in our college campuses now, they're trying to push the idea that no, the white people in this country are just systemically racist. And they don't even see it, and they need to be enlightened. And we need to make them feel guilty for racism, even though they don't recall being racist. Just by being white, they're racist. That's that sick, pathological idea that is being spread. And unfortunately, Wheaton College and the alumni board president and the faculty at Wheaton and even the college president at Wheaton are buying into that guilt trip that the Black Lives Matter and black activists and the radical fringe of the Democratic Party, now spreading to the whole Democratic Party, want to throw and push on the American population. And they're doing it for power reasons. They want to gain power. They want to pressure and bully people into giving them their radical left agenda. And one of the ways is there is a lot of guilt being pushed to white people to get them to confess that they're racist and to get them to make reparations and make them to get transfer payments and to get them to give out goodies and do all kinds of things for a bigger political agenda. And Wheaton College, instead of standing firm on truth and saying, look, let's look at this, let's analyze it, rationally think through this issues, they're just saying, well, we better buy into that whole narrative because if we don't, we'll be labeled racist and then students won't come and we'll suffer financially and things will go downhill fast for us. So we have to buy into that narrative. And so it's fully embracing. So again, the president of the Alumni Association says, during the pandemic, we became more aware that embracing our differences does not always come easily. Well, there was nothing that took place during the pandemic that really proved anything more than we already knew. Now, it is true that when you bring together people that have very huge number of differences, you're going to have some kind of difficulty working together with people that have a lot of differences. And it says that at Wheaton College is a diverse place of over 50 denominations represented, 50 states and 43 countries. 23% of students are American ethnic minorities. So Wheaton is becoming more and more diverse. And there was some diversity when I was a student at Wheaton. There were black students, there were Latino students, there were Asian students, there were, of course, the majority white students. And I didn't see conflict. I didn't see violence. I didn't see aggression. I didn't see the kind of division that's trying to be painted by the critical race theories and the racist narratives that are being pushed by Black Lives Matter and other black activist groups and the radical left. I didn't see that. And that was decades ago, and I didn't see that. As far as I could tell, that there was harmony and peaceful environment for everyone, regardless of their skin color and their ethnicity at Wheaton College. Wheaton College was founded by the Blanchards, and the Blanchards were pushing heavily and fought hard for the end of slavery, abolitionists. So Wheaton was born under the impulse of equality and pushing against slavery. So it wasn't some Southern institution that was locked on to some slavery tradition. No. Wheaton was born out of the abolitionist movement with the Blanchards, who founded the college in the 1800s. And as far as I know, it's never been a racist institution, and there hasn't been discrimination and all kinds of the other ills that we're being accused of. And yet, we're being told here that during the pandemic, it became apparent that we have difficulty getting along with people that are different from us. No, that's the narrative that the Black Lives Matter activists want to push upon this nation, is that white people can't get along with black people. That's the narrative, but that's a false narrative. And I'm sorry to see Wheaton College and its representatives pushing that lie, that false narrative that white people can't get along with black people. That's a lie. It says, even as the body of Christ called to love one another, we frequently struggle as we seek to understand differences, and we can fail to recognize when we cause pain. Again, there's that narrative. It's that white people cause black people pain. White people cause minorities pain because white people think they're better than every other person. That is a false narrative. That is a false statement. We don't cause other people any more pain than they cause us. When I was a student at Wheaton College, there were the typical conflicts and struggles that you see in relationships of any group, whether it's an all-white group or an ethnic group, diverse group. There are always going to be conflicts in relationships and misunderstandings and hurt feelings and miscommunication and all the rest. And that's the human race. We're all sinners. We all come from a selfish perspective. And it isn't fair to say that white people cause black people pain any more than black people cause white people pain. We all cause each other pain to some degree, and we all have to learn to get along with each other to some degree. But to point the finger at a specific group and say, you're the cause of the problems in this country, your whiteness is the cause of the problem. Now, I've already gone over the different influences of critical race theory at Wheaton College. We saw that there was the coordinator for the Office of Multicultural Engagement. I think her name is Sheila Caldwell. She was pushing the critical race thinking on the body of Wheaton College and the community there, and she was actually promoting the Ibram X. Kendi's book, Being an Anti-Racist. Okay, and that book is full of racism. It's coming from a perspective that the white person is the enemy. It's very similar to a lot of the things you'll hear, for example, in the Nation of Islam. And if you listen to the Reverend, so-called Reverend Louis Farrakhan, this is a cult. This is a false religion, the Nation of Islam. It isn't Islam, and it's not anything other than its own cult-like status. And they have the Reverend Louis Farrakhan, who is a big racist. He's a black racist. He hates white people. In fact, he was the one who is pushing the racist theory, and actually it's part of their doctrine, the religion of Islam, Nation of Islam. Not the Islamic religion does not teach us, but the Nation of Islam, that cult, that false cult that Louis Farrakhan is the leader of right now. And he is on video, and you can go look it up on YouTube if it hasn't been taken down. He explains the origins of the white people. And his explanation of the origins of the white race is that there was a king, and he had a son who was next in line to become king. But he decided that he would skip over that son and make a younger son the king. And so that one who was skipped over was angry and became mad at his father and decided to play a trick on his father's kingdom. And so he would breed black people, and he would take the lightest colored black people and pair them together, and their offspring would be a shade of black. And then he would find another lighter colored black person and bring them together, and they would breed a child who would be of a lighter colored black. And they would continue to do this until they became so white that they no longer were black, they were a shade of white. And that's how the white race supposedly came into existence. And that's part of their doctrine. Okay, so you can see that that's a crackpot theory. No evidence for that ever taking place. It's called the evil scientist racist theory of Farrakhan and his followers. And they believe that, they say that they believe, I don't know if they actually believe it, but they say they believe that's how the white race came about long, long ago. Well, you see some of that kind of nonsense in the critical race theory and the Ibram X. Kendi when you start talking about the whole white race is the problem in society, and whiteness has to be done away with, and white people have to stop being white and that kind of thing. You get this nonsense, and yeah, you see shades of the Nation of Islam and their wacko doctrines. And she goes on to say that the Alumni Association Board of Directors laments that for some, their experience of Wheaton, both as students and alumni, include times of being wounded rather than nurtured. So again, there's that word, lament. And we're supposed to, that's part of the critical race theory agenda for the white people, is that they're supposed to lament that they've been so bad and so sinful and so evil against other people, and that they have been white supremacists, and that they have caused pain and injury and wounded these other ethnic diversity people. And so the white race has to lament, and they have to be sad and grieved over all of the pain that they have caused. Well, there was a war back in the 1800s against North versus South that helped eliminate slavery in this country. White people fought against slavery. White people put an end to slavery by fighting against it and eliminating it as an institution. Did that eliminate all of the animosity or the racism in our country? No. But over 100 years or so since that time, I can honestly say that growing up, I did not encounter white people talking bad about black people. And I can honestly say that when I went to Wheaton College, I did not see this so-called racism that's being identified by the critical race theories everywhere. They see racism everywhere. If a white person slighted or offended a black person, that's counted as racism. No, that's the human condition, because people offend every other kind of person. In the cities of Chicago, right up the street from Wheaton College, black people shoot black people every day. Are they racist for doing that? They're fighting black people, black against black. Are they fighting racism? Are they fighting against each other? They're part of the human condition. And yet critical race theory blames their violence on the white man and white culture because they're oppressed. Again, we need to think through these issues. We need to be clear about things. We need to investigate and get the facts and not just buy into these narratives, even though they're easy to buy into. It's easier to go along with that because then you don't face any kind of charge of racism or white supremacy. And Wheaton College has bought into that. It says, this is especially notable for some students and alumni of color. In light of this, in 2020, we created an internal diversity advisory group composed of the current members of the alumni board. We looked into structures such as the board composition and our processes, such as the criteria we use in granting awards. We've sought to identify unintentional barriers that prevent equal participation. So they're doing the whole critical race theory thing. They're saying, okay, we're white supremacists. We have racism in our structure. And so we're going to go through everything and make sure that there's at no point can we be called or even insinuated, or anyone, even the critical race theorists, can't call us racist. We're going to go through and bend over backwards and make sure and virtue signal and prove to the world that we're not racist. You can't run a Christian institution. You can't run a Christian church. You can't run a Christian life on 24/7 virtue signaling, trying to convince other people, oh, I'm not that. I'm not racist. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not this. I'm not that. Whatever. That's a defensive mechanism. It's not a sincere effort to live the Christian life and obey the scriptures and live for Jesus. It's a virtue signaling, I'll show you how good I am. I'm going to be so that you can't criticize me at any turn. And I will prove that I'm not like those bad people. That's a crummy way to run an institution. And then it talks about we need to pay attention so we do not further unintentionally to exclude alumni of color. While our work is in its infancy, again, you got to do the work. This is coming from the critical race theory playbook. This is Ibram X. Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is exactly what they have been pushing now for at least 5 years, and it's starting to show up in all of their areas. So they don't wound people, so they don't hurt people. This is capitulation to the world. Christians should be about loving people of all colors and all backgrounds and everyone. But we don't virtue signal our way to holiness. We do it out of a sincere heart, and we live for Jesus, and we don't buy into these secular theories that try to paint a broad brush and say one race, the white race, is the problem. No, we see sin in everyone, and we seek holiness in everyone. And so pray for Wheaton College. Pray that they don't cave any further. Pray that they stand for the truth. We'll see you back next week on another edition. God bless.